Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today is the 16th of June 2021. So I thought that on this day in 1815 the twin battles of Quatre and Ligny were fought. And I thought that for our Wednesday night video I'd just do a bit of a reading from the book Voices from the Past, Waterloo 1815, which is an absolutely superb book. It's a collection of memoirs, and this is from Captain von Ruther, commander of a Prussian artillery battery. Now, those of you who haven't seen my part 5 of the Prussian army, that deals almost exclusively with the Battle of Ligny. I'm really proud of that video, actually. I think I'll try and link it in the description below if I remember. So I'll go and check that out after this video. But for those of you who haven't seen it or can't remember, behind the main line of villages where the fighting happened, there was a windmill that was used as a command post for Blucher. And there was obviously a battery of artillery positioned there as well. It was commanded by Captain von Ruther, and this is what he had to say about the Battle of Ligny. Quote, "I suppose it was between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I received an order to take 4 guns of my battery and accompany the 4th Regiment in its advance towards Saint-Armand, while the howitzers and the 2 remaining guns took up a position opposite Ligny, so as to be able to shell the open ground beyond the village and the village itself too, in the event of our not being able to hold it. I halted my guns about 600 paces from Saint-Armand and opened fire on the enemy's artillery in position on the high ground opposite, which at once began to reply to a well-sustained fire of shells and inflicted heavy losses on us." End quote. So I'm just going to jump in here and say it's something that we often dismiss as wargamers, counter-battery fire. But certainly in the later wars, certainly World War One, counter-battery artillery fire was quite big. My great-granddad was gassed in the First World War. He was an artilleryman. So it absolutely did happen, and we see it happened in Napoleonic times as well. So, you know, when I did my video on targets for artillery, and I mentioned the enemy artillery, it's certainly not beyond the realms of possibility. But anyway, let's get back into the account. Quote, "Meanwhile, the 14th Regiment, without ever thinking of leaving an escort behind for us, pressed gallantly forward to Saint-Armand and succeeded in gaining possession of that part of the village. I myself was under the impression that they had been able to occupy the whole of it. The battery had been thus engaging for some hours in its combat with the hostile guns, and we were awaiting the orders to follow up the movement of the 14th Regiment when suddenly I became aware of 2 strong lines of skirmishers, which were apparently falling back on us from the village of Saint-Armand. Imagining that the skirmishers in front of us were our own countrymen, I hastened up the battery and warned my layers not to direct their aim upon them, but to continue to engage the guns opposite. In the meantime, the skirmishers in question had got within 300 paces of the battery. I had just returned to the right flank of my command when our surgeon Zinkernagel called my attention to the red tufts on the shakos of the sharpshooters. I at once bellowed out the order, 'With grape on the skirmishers!' At the same moment, both their lines turned upon us, gave a volley, and then flung themselves on the ground. By this volley and the bursting of a shell or two, every horse except one wheeler, belonging to the gun on my left flank, was either killed or wounded. I ordered the horse to be taken out of my ammunition wagons, which had been emptied, and thus intended to make my gun fit to move again, while I meanwhile kept up a slow fire of grape that had the effect of keeping the marksmen in my front glued to the ground. But in another moment, all of a sudden, I saw my left flank taken in rear from the direction of the Ligny Brook by a French staff officer and about 50 horsemen. As these rushed upon the officer, shouted to me in German, 'Surrender, gunners, for you are all prisoners.' With these words, he charged down with his men on the flank gun on my left and dealt a vicious cut to my wheel driver, who dodged it, however, by flinging himself over his dead horse. The blow was delivered with such goodwill that the sabre cut deep into the saddle and stuck there fast. Gunner Seeberg, however, availing himself of the chance of momentary delay afforded, snatched up the handspike of one of the 12-pounders, and with the words, 'I'll soon show him to take prisoners,' dealt the officer such a blow on his bearskin that he rolled with a broken skull from the back of his grey charger, which galloped away into the line of skirmishers at our front." So, end quote. I'll just break in a second here. That sounds like Prussian artillery need to get some tough fighter action going on there. But back to the account. Quote, "The 50 horsemen, unable to control their horses which bounded after their companion, followed his lead in a moment, rode over the prostrate marksmen, and carried the utmost confusion into the enemy's ranks. I seized the opportunity to limber up all of my guns, except the unfortunate one on my left, and to retire on 2 of our cavalry regiments, which I saw drawn up around 200 paces to my rear. It was only when I had thus fallen back that the enemy's skirmishers ventured to approach my remaining gun. I could see from a distance how bravely its detachment defended themselves, and it with handspikes in their sidearms, and some of them in the end succeeded in regaining the battery. The moment I got near our cavalry, I rode up to them and entreated them to endeavour to recapture my guns again from the enemy, but they refused to comply with my request. I therefore returned sorrowfully to my battery, which had retired meanwhile behind the hill with the windmill on it near Ligny. End quote. So that's it really. I just wanted to have that little bit of a fun story there. I didn't manage to get into the video on Ligny. Now, I said this weekend I wanted to get the Prussian video done, perhaps out on Friday. I'm afraid that's not going to happen. This weekend was a bit more hectic than I expected it to be, and I've not been able to get that script finished. But there will be a video on Sunday, don't worry, as normal. And the Prussian one, the final Prussian video, will be out soon. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for supporting the channel. With the unlocking being pushed back a little further, some of the planned games might get pushed back again as well, so I'd apologise in advance for those. We've got some ideas for games though. The first one is going to be 2 brand new lockdown armies, so I'm looking forward to getting that one out. But as I say, thank you very much for your continued support. With the lockdown being extended, it really has meant a lot to me to have you guys supporting me, engaging with the content, and thank you for helping me be part of a community. So I don't say that often enough, and having this weekend off and being able to sit in the sun and think about things, it really is a privilege to be able to have you guys supporting the channel with just watching the videos, sharing, liking, subscribing, any of that stuff. But ultimately, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.